Welcome to our house, the House of Fi. At the House of Fi, we are all about achieving financial independence for families. Wherever you are in your financial independence journey, we want our house to be a place where you can learn and get inspired. If you are a parent on the journey to Fi, then come on in. We're glad that you're here. Here are your hosts, Wendy and Tamika.
Hello, House of Fi family. Welcome back to the show. We are so excited today to talk to two amazing people, Amon and Christina from Our Rich Journey. They have a YouTube channel that they share some just incredible tips and just some fascinating things too about travel and living in another country and working in another country. We're just really excited to talk to them and get their perspective on a lot of different things and maybe some things that are outside the box that you haven't thought about yet on your journey to Fi. So welcome to the show, you guys.
Hey.
Hi, thanks so much for having us.
Oh, you are welcome. And I should not forget that my amazing co-host is here as well.
Oh, yes, I'm here. I'm ready to ask some questions.
Well, we do the standard question. What is your story? Kind of give us a little bit about who you are so our listeners who don't know who you are, you can let them know what you're all about.
Yeah, so we actually live in Japan overseas. We've been living here for about 2 years, and we have 2 little girls, or I guess not so little, they're 10 and 11, but we all live here. They go to school here in Japan, and we've been traveling all over the world. So I think we're from California, but we've lived in Spain also, and we just love to see the world. And so we've been traveling and living in different countries and just experiencing worldwide travel.
I think that is so incredible that you're able to do that and do that with your children. How old were they when you initially moved abroad the first time?
So, well, we moved abroad before we had children. We moved to Spain. And so one of the things that we kind of figured out earlier in life was that there were all these opportunities to live and work abroad. So I think we were maybe 2 or 3 years out of college, and we were in San Diego actually, and we said, we want to try something different. So we started looking at different places and just found basically that there were so many opportunities to work abroad. And so we moved to Spain, and we were in Spain for about a year. We had just gotten married. And while we were there, we decided to start a family, actually. And so Christina was pregnant in Spain, and we were going to Spanish doctors. And then while we were in Spain, we saw another job opportunity in Japan. And so we moved to Japan just in time to have our first daughter in Japan. And then our second daughter was born about a year and a half later, also in Japan, the same doctor. And at that time, we lived in Japan for about 5 years, and then we went back to Spain, and we've just been going, traveling the world ever since. We did spend some time back in the U.S., and now we're back in Japan.
So basically, their first experience abroad was being born in Japan.
Wow. So much to unpack there, because I want to know, first of all, how in the world do you find jobs that are abroad? I think that so many people dream of that, but have no idea of where to even begin to accomplish that.
Yeah, it's strange because when we talk to people also, I think it's just this understanding that there actually are a lot of jobs abroad for specifically for Americans. That's how we look for it. But we did do a video on different places that provide jobs for Americans overseas, and there are just a ton of different options. Of course, there's the big option is the U.S. government option. So there's USA Jobs, where people can find jobs abroad and work for the U.S. government in foreign areas, and that's a huge area for people to find jobs. But then there's also the private markets, and so places like Samsung, Facebook, Google, Uber, Netflix, they all have different areas abroad also that specifically hire people. And this is coming from an American perspective, of course, but they hire all different people, but Americans can find jobs in foreign countries for private organizations also. It's really great living abroad too, in that we actually get our housing paid for, we get all of our utilities paid for, and we also have an adjustment that pays for extra costs associated with the higher cost of living in Japan. So it's so many benefits for living overseas and working overseas that I don't think a lot of people are aware of.
You mentioned a lot of American companies. What about the healthcare? Do you have the insurance that's from the United States, but are you able to use the doctors in that country? How does that work?
Yeah, so the insurance companies our insurance is through our employer, and the insurance we're able to use on the local economy here. So, what's interesting is that the insurance companies are actually American insurance companies that have a reimbursement process for doctors abroad. So it's actually a really smooth system. And what's nice about some companies is that they will have kind of a doctor referral system for doctors that speak English, that take your insurance. But we have not had a problem with health insurance in any of the countries we've been to.
So I guess when I think of going abroad, I always think of education, maybe going to teach English, or possibly military work, some contracting work. What types of jobs do you have? What industries?
So I'm an attorney, and
And I'm an urban planner. And we have found that there are jobs for almost every discipline. And I mean, if you look at a large corporation, they have they have all of the same departments that they would have in the U.S., but they have them abroad. So they have an HR group, they have a facilities management group, they have a legal department, and so even though they're abroad, they have the same setup, just kind of on a smaller scale. So we found that we have friends in all disciplines that work abroad, and it really is surprising that most people don't realize that those same disciplines transfer abroad.
Well, I mean, it's just amazing. I do know that when you have these big companies, you would need to find employees throughout the whole structure. So logically, or it seems like if you think about it with just common sense, it makes sense that these jobs would exist. But if I could ask a question, just thinking about a family or thinking about a couple that's dating, when you find were you two dating and working at the same location and then transferred with the same job? Or did you have to find jobs separately in Spain for multiple companies? Or how did that work?
Well, the first time when we came to Spain, when we first started living abroad, we had just gotten married before we moved abroad, and we just moved from Amman. So I was not working at the time. So it was just Amman. And then after that, when we moved to Japan, I had our first daughter. And so I wasn't working for a period of time there. And then I found a job while I was there. And then we moved back to Spain, where I decided not to work. And then when we moved back to the States, that's actually when I went to law school. So the whole attorney path has been more recent. So my path before that was not finding a job as an attorney overseas. And then when we moved back, and after I went to law school, we moved overseas again. And at that point, we found jobs at separate periods in time. So Amon found his job first. And then once he found out where he was going, I started applying in that area also. And so he actually moved first about a month before me, and then I moved to Japan with my job.
So when you decided to go back and get your law degree, was moving abroad part of the plan in terms of paying that off? You said your housing's paid for, your utilities in some of these cases. Was that part of the financial plan?
I don't think it was actually. I thought after I went because we left Spain to go back so I could start law school. And we left Spain the second time so I could go to law school. And I think at that point, I went to law school at UCLA for the first 2 years. And then the last year I moved up to Berkeley into the Bay Area and went to law school my last year there. So after I finished law school, I got a job with a firm in San Francisco. And I really thought that that was going to be our permanent place because Amon was also working in San Francisco. And our kids were older at that point. And we sort of, I think once you get the travel bug and living abroad, after you don't have it for a while, you begin to miss it. And we had been in the States for about 5 years at that point, 3 for law school and then 2 for working after that. And we just started getting this desire to go back abroad. And it wasn't the original plan, but it just felt like it was calling us again. And we ended up starting to look to go abroad.
Yeah, but when we were living in the Bay Area, we had just gotten to a point where, we were in that rat race. We were going to work every day. We didn't have a lot of time with our children in the evening, and we knew that when we lived abroad the first time, our quality of life was much better. It just felt like the days were slower. We had more time with our children. We had more time to kind of sit back and sip coffee and smell the roses. And so when we looked at it from a quality of life standpoint, it started to make sense every day. And then when we started to look at the numbers, now, when we were in the Bay Area, we were always house hacking. So housing in the Bay Area wasn't really a huge expense for us like it is for a lot of people. But when we talked about going abroad, we knew that housing benefit would be there. And so we, this time when we went abroad, we strategically looked for a corporation or a place to work for that we could both find a job at. And by doing that, by having the housing paid for, economically, it just made all the sense in the world to move back.
So when you're married, do both of you qualify for separate benefits like that? So would you both get a housing allowance, or do they know you're married and they give you one family allowance?
It really just depends on your situation. Mm-hmm. We've seen it all types of ways. There are some companies that like that package. If you have 2 professionals, they know that they can, if both people want to continue working, they'll try to find jobs for the both of you because they know that you'll stay longer. It's always a challenge when one person is working and the other person is not, and maybe they do want to work. Your time is very, you're kind of on a clock. But with both of us working, I mean, we could spend our whole career abroad.
This is so interesting.
Considerations like schooling for your children. Do they have to go to an international school? Is it something that's paid for, or that you have to pay for it?
Oh no. So, and this is the best part about it all, because schools are always a challenge to find in the US. And I mean, there are some great school districts, but with every great school district, there is a price tag. And then, so you're either going to pay more for a house, or you're going to send your kids to a private school and pay more for private school. What's really cool about working abroad is that the companies, as a part of your agreement, most will also provide you with they'll either connect you with a private school, or they'll give you money to go to a private school. So we have friends that live and work in Singapore. And the education system in Singapore, the private school education system in Singapore, is some of the best in the nation, and it's really, really expensive. So they give them $50,000 for each child, so they can send their children to any private school in Singapore.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, they really have to create this incentive for people, especially, we've already lived abroad, so we know the experience, but for people that are a little hesitant or they don't know what it's going to be like living abroad, the corporations or the companies, they try to make it as seamless as possible for people that are coming over to work for them, because the easier it is for people while they're here, again, the more likely they are to stay. So they really want to take care of things like traveling here, moving all of your stuff here, schooling, all those types of things. They try and make it very easy and simple in order to get the employee here and then also to retain their employees.
That's just amazing. I would love to do something like that. I don't think my husband is on board with anything like that. And then what about all the kids,
Yeah.
A lot of kids to pack up and move, but I would love to do it. I mean, it would be a dream. So we'll have to work on him. So I wanted to take a step back and kind of talk about your financial independence journey. Kind of talk about where you started and then kind of where you are now. Have you always known about the financial independence, or was there a time where you discovered it, and where were you when you discovered it?
Oh, that's such an interesting question, because I think it's something that it was something we were kind of pursuing.
Almost unconsciously.
Yeah, almost unconsciously.
I mean, it became more recent where we have really begun to sit down with the numbers and understand how close we are to retirement. I think there's no real aha moment, I don't think. I think from the very beginning, we've always been good about spending our money, saving our money, making sure we're not spending money in excess. And at some point, we just realized, hey, if we're investing this much money each month from our paycheck, then we can actually retire at this stage versus the general concept of people that they think that they have to wait until a certain age before they can retire. We're thinking, actually, we're on track we could retire in a couple years from now. And it's all about investing our money instead of spending our money. So, for example, when we live here and we don't have we don't have to pay for housing or for utilities, we don't see that as an opportunity. Hey, we're saving about $4,000 in housing. We don't go out and buy $4,000 of extra stuff each month. We take that savings that we would normally have to pay in other areas, and then we would invest it instead. So I think our journey has always been on that path, but we've become more cognizant of it because we realize that the retirement age is becoming lower and lower by tracking all of our expenses and making sure our investments are in the right place.
And I'll add to that. Every dollar that we save with a hack or some sort of side hustle, we've always reinvested that into the market or into our savings or maybe in the real estate. So we have always tried to 10x everything that we do. And we talk a lot about that on our YouTube channel, is that if you're going to save money by travel hacking, if you're going to save money by house hacking, if you're going to do a side hustle, it gets you to financial independence faster if you reinvest that money.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess that in hearing you speak, the question I have is, if you're living abroad and you're not having these costs that normally would factor into a FI number, how do you determine what your FI number is? Do you go back to, when you were living in California? Do you pick a place first that you think you'd want to go? How do you do it?
Yeah. So we have 3 FI numbers, and our FI numbers are geographically determined. So.
Oh, cool. Okay, I want to hear more.
Yeah. So we have we're using our highest cost of living FI number, which is going back to the Bay Area, and then we have a FI number of going and living in Hawaii, because we love we love the sunshine, we love the beaches. And then I think our lowest FI number is probably living abroad, either in Thailand or Portugal or Spain. So we're working with those three numbers.
Why did you pick those three? For like, if you do end up moving abroad for retirement, why those three countries? Is there something about them, healthcare or anything like that, that makes those a better choice than others?
Oh yeah, I mean we've really studied this a lot, and we look at just general cost of living, quality of life, safety, security. Something that's also really big for us are healthcare, of course, and in the case of Portugal, which more and more people are kind of discovering Portugal, but there's a huge tax benefit, and if we're going to be living off of our assets, how our assets are taxed is going to be something that's really important to us. And we've been to all of those places. We go back sometimes 2 or 3 times a year to each one of those places, so we're quite familiar with them.
So what is the Portugal tax benefit?
Well, I don't want to get too deep into taxes because it can get slightly complex. But essentially, Portugal is trying to attract retirees, folks that are living off of their pensions or off of their assets to the country. And they did this during the economic downturn, where they changed the laws. And what they've done is they've allowed people with those type of assets not to be taxed for the first 10 years. So they're not going to pay taxes on those assets.
Nice. That's really
Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So after that, then they're taxed under whatever structure is.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So they'd be regularly taxed after the first 10 years, but we have not seen anything like that in any other countries that would allow you to basically live tax-free for the first 10 years that you're in that country.
Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing benefit. And 10 years is, a whole decade. It's a huge amount of time.
Right.
And that's a huge amount of savings in terms of
Mhm.
drawing down on your nest egg.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So how did you get into the travel hacking component? And how advanced are you now with your travel hacking skills?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. So when we got into travel hacking, it was actually someone who had told Amon about it. And we love to travel. We love to go as many places as we can go. We actually just got back from a trip to Singapore that we completely travel hacked. But the way we got started in it was that someone had mentioned something to Amon that, oh yeah, I got my flight paid for and I got my hotel paid for. And he was like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And once that was broken down for Amon just took the reins and just went off on it and was getting the credit cards that we needed to getting the proper cards that would give us the sign-up bonuses in order to enable us to fly for free and get free hotels. But this started about 2 years ago, and since we have discovered travel hacking, we have not paid for any flights or any hotels to any of the places that we've been to. And we've gone to France, we've gone to Italy, Spain, Thailand, Hawaii several times. We just
Singapore.
We just a week and a half ago got back from Singapore, and all of our flights, all of our hotels for a family of 4 have been completely paid for. I just wish more people knew about this. It almost seems like when you think about it, when you hear it for the first time, you're thinking there's got to be a scam. Like how is this even possible? But it has been the best discovery for us.
Wow. So, okay. There's just so much here. So
Yes.
Your husband comes home. He says, somebody told me I can open up all these cards and we can go anywhere we want. And then what was your reaction?
Oh, my reaction was like, you're crazy. There's no way. Amon really, like I said, Amon had to start it, and he was getting the cards, and I was just like, fine, yeah, I get it. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. And when Amon is very methodical. He will create these spreadsheets. He will say, we need to get this card, this card. These are how many bonus points we need. We need to spend by, this amount by this amount of time. And he has this huge spreadsheet. And I'm just like, yeah, go ahead and do it. That's fine. And then when I'm seeing, wait, we have all these points. We can go here. We can go here. And when I'm actually seeing it put into play and it's actually working, now I'm like to Amon, hey, what's our next card? Where did you see this bonus that comes up? We can get these bonus points for this card. And so I'm much more actively engaged in it. Whereas before I was very, very skeptical when he first started.
I can imagine.
Oh, go ahead, Amon.
Oh, and this is with credit cards. There's always some personal history that people have with credit cards. Either it's something, a bad experience that they've had or a family experience. And so, fortunately, we've always been good with our credit, and we've always educated ourselves on our credit. So we knew what we were getting into. We understood credit. And then so with that knowledge of credit, we were able to then go a step further and understand credit card hacking. And so you have to be able to have a clear understanding of both of those for this to work. Because a lot of people, they don't really understand their credit. They're, what they're using is like hearsay, things that have been passed down. So us making that connection really made this whole thing make a whole lot of sense.
Were there any particular resources that you used to familiarize yourself with how to do it and the cards that were out there, or did you just go to, each credit card company's website and learn about it that way?
Yeah, so there are a ton of resources online, and I learned a lot from Facebook groups, from just the online community, Reddit. And there's a group of, there's like this underworld of travel hackers. They share these tips and tricks and these sign-up bonuses because not every sign-up bonus is advertised to the public. And so I used a lot of those resources, and then just kind of studying things separately. So studying my FICO score separately, studying credit utilization. I mean, just a number of things, and then kind of putting them all together into a travel hacking plan.
It's hard to tell people about the credit card hacking thing because, like I said, like when Amon thought of it, I was just so skeptical. And I even think when we tell other people, they're at the same level of skepticism that I was at when we started, because it almost feels like it's just too good to be true. And I'm like, I want to sell it so bad. I have there's no like monetary incentive for me to sell it, but I'm like, man, if people knew about this, it's like you could just, whenever you have time, it'd be more about having time versus about having money to do it.
Exactly. So I do have a question. After you open the cards, do you leave them open or do you close them?
It depends on the card. So we have like a core group of cards that we keep to maintain really long credit history. Yeah. But when you're churning the cards, after especially if they have an annual fee, sometimes it just makes sense to cancel them.
But we've also had them waived too. We've had the annual fees waived.
Yes, we tried to call and cancel, and they offer us more bonus.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's like
it's sometimes worth it.
Yeah. And another tip.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say another tip that we do also, or that another trick that we have also is that we won't sign up together on the same card. So, for example, Amon will sign up for the card first on just his name. He won't add me. And then once he gets the card, then they'll give him a lot of times they'll give him a referral bonus. So once he gets that, then he refers me and he gets referral points for that. And then I sign up. So we basically, for each card, we have two of the same card, just one in each of our names. And then we get the huge sign up bonus each, and then also a referral bonus.
So is there anything that you can tell us that we might not know about FICO scores or credit utilization that people usually, I'm sure people ask you, doesn't that drop your score, or how to do it, how to open so many cards without taking a big hit? Is there any one thing that you'd like people to know more than anything else about FICO scores or anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I should have added that too, because that's another thing that I was thinking of, was sort of like, this isn't going to work. And what about our credit? And we actually found that our credit scores have gotten higher since we've done the credit card hacking, which sounds very strange, I'm sure, because we're taking out a lot of additional credit cards and our score is going up. But doing research, we found that when you initially apply for a credit card, your score may take a hit of about 5 points, but it then begins to raise because you are getting more cards and it's affecting your credit card utilization rate, which means that you have your credit report is showing that you have more credit that's available to you. And if you're not using the entire credit card, it's actually impacting your credit card utilization rate and making it a very good rate. So the more cards that you take out, it's showing that you have more money to spend, and it's actually impacting your credit score in a positive way. So when we started this, our credit card utilization rate by taking out more cards actually became better. And so it impacted our credit by increasing our credit score rather than decreasing it like I originally was concerned about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I can see what you're saying. So that credit utilization rate or percentage would go up because you're then adding another, let's say 10,000, 20,000, even 5,000 or whatever dollars to your total credit. And so now you went from having, let's say a $10,000 total to maybe a $40,000 total, and you're still using a small percentage each month.
Exactly. And I think that if people are disciplined with their credit card use, this is really credit card hacking, travel hacking is really an option for people that are very good about credit card use. So when we take out a new credit card, we use it to reach the sign up bonus and the amount that we need to spend in order to get the sign up bonus, but we are not purchasing things that we normally wouldn't purchase. So if the sign up bonus is, for example, $3,000 over the course of 3 months, we're not going out and going on a shopping spree just so we can get that sign up bonus. We're only using it on things that we would normally buy anyways. And then once we reach that, we're not going out and spending additional things and putting it on the card. So our ratio still stays very low.
So that was one of the things that I always wondered about. And it has to do with being frugal or FI-minded. I don't know if you consider yourselves frugal or just optimizers, but if you are constantly with keeping your expenses low, how do you reach the bonuses? Especially if, for many in our FI world, your biggest expense is something like your housing, and you can't necessarily put that, or maybe you can, on a credit card. Where do you find the expenses?
Oh, yeah. So we are certainly frugal, and I have been accused of being cheap as well. But, we have to eat food, right? and we have expenses that we budget for every month. And so just a family of four is, you're going to have consistent expenses. You're going to have your food, you're going to have your utilities, you're going to have your cell phone. And then every now and then you'll have a big expense that's a scheduled big expense that you can put on your card. And for example, we will try to pay our taxes every year with our credit card. So we have some properties back in the U.S., and so we will pay our property tax with the credit card. Now, there is a 2% fee when you pay your taxes with your credit card. But the credit card that we use gives you 3 to 4% back, cash back, when you use your credit card to pay for real estate expenses. So we have a card that we actually make money with whenever we pay our real estate taxes. So it's just us being strategic with every sign-up bonus. And so this works by not taking out too many credit cards at once. So you have a goal to reach $3,000 in 3 months. That's only $1,000 a month, and for our family, $1,000 in expenses per month, we can easily reach that. And I think that's probably the same for most people. So for us, that's why it still surprises us that people are skeptical about this, because you're going to spend that money anyway.
Well, I don't know that everybody has the budget set up, so they don't know that they're spending $1,000 or $2,000 and that it's chargeable. I need to ask you, because my taxes, if I pay those online, there's a 3% fee, which I'm very upset that it's so high. What is the card that you use to get the cash back on the real estate taxes? Okay. Do you know it offhand?
Yeah. So I'm sorry. It's our Chase card. I don't really like to endorse any cards in particular, because every sign-up bonus is dependent on your own personal needs. So in this particular case, it is the Chase. I forget which Chase card it is, but that particular card allows for that. I will say, though, that when you sign up for these bonuses, you should have a plan in mind of what type of points you want to amass. So if you're going to be doing a whole lot of travel that requires flights, you want to go after this, the cards that have these frequent flyer bonuses. Or if you're going to be needing your credit card for hotel stays, you want to go after the hotel bonuses. Or some people just want the cash back. And that's always a really nice, sweet spot for sign-up bonuses. The Chase cards in particular, you can either use those points for travel, or you can get cash back. And that's really cool.
We're not quite where we need to be to do that yet, but it's on my plan. And the realization for our family is, with 6 children, really the only way that we're going to be able to take trips and take our children to some of these incredible places is to do something like travel hacking. So when I first learned about it, it was like this whole new door had opened up. Like, wow, we really could allow our Now, speaking of family, I was noticing that on your YouTube channel, you have several videos that include your children, and they actually do their own little spots, which I think is so cool.
My goodness. I saw those videos. Those are so cute.
Yeah.
So cute. I think it was like a money minute or something.
Yes.
Oh, so cute. Okay. Go ahead, Wendy. Sorry.
Oh, no. We're just gushing over babies.
Yeah, they're so cute.
How did that idea come about? What was it about?
Well, it's funny. It came about in a couple different ways. Our youngest daughter was doing these presentations in her class, and she was using something called Powtoons or something, and she would pick the most complex subjects. And I thought that would be really cool if she could explain a complex money subject or topic. And so we asked her if it was something she wanted to do, and she was like, yeah. And so our first video, I think, is of our youngest daughter explaining kind of what is investing. And it was just so cute that we were like, oh, do you want to do another one? And I'll also add that it was summertime. So now that school has started, they won't be doing those videos, because we actually made it into like a summer project where they would go and they would research a topic, and we would talk about it. And then they would do just a 60-second explanation of what is a Roth IRA, or what is investing, what is a brokerage account. And it's just so cute to see our little girls talk about a subject that, it can be pretty dry. But when a kid's talking about it, it's just fun.
And I also think that it's not very common in families to talk about finances in that much depth with children. And I didn't get that discussion when I was their age. I actually didn't really get that discussion at all. I just mirrored what I saw my mother do, which was a lot of saving. So I didn't get that investment component in terms of what you do with your money after you save. So it's also important for us to mirror the stuff that we do so that our kids can take those lessons and apply them when they're adults, but also so that at this age they're already beginning to understand investments and money and what's the difference between a want and a need when you're spending money. And they already have custodial accounts that we invest for them. So I think part of the idea of doing those money minute videos with them also is to get them engaged in the topic and understanding and learning the topic at this age that they're at now.
You know, like as you were speaking and, just talking about how, how fun it is and how cute it is, but then talking about, you didn't have those conversations as a kid. And I know that I didn't have those conversations as a kid. And I don't even think we will realize how important these conversations, we just don't know the magnitude that they're
I think financial independence can be generational too. So it's that Amon and I are developing our understanding and gaining more education on the topic. And like I said, we didn't start when we were like our girls' age at 10 and 11 years old. So they are, and we weren't investing at 10 and 11. We already have investments for them at their age now. So they're already ahead of the game in terms of when we started. And for us, we feel, wow, we're doing really well in terms of reaching financial independence and being able to set a goal for early retirement. But we didn't start at their age. So I think the more that we can have these discussions with our girls at the age that they are now, our goal is for them to be, as a parent, you want your children to be more successful than you. You want them to be happy and successful in terms of the idea that they can live a happy, enjoyable life and not be constrained by the thoughts of how am I going to pay this next bill? Or, I don't have an emergency fund. What am I going to do? Because those things are very stressful for people and for families. And if we can try and set up our girls at this age to start understanding how they can make investments to be financially successful in the future, then we're really setting up our girls for that type of success.
It's so powerful. Well, we are nearing the end of our time. It went so quickly, and I did not get to ask so many questions that I wanted to ask. The things that, that you guys did with, purchasing your first house and then the next one, and kind of how you just made some really good decisions that way. So maybe we'll have to have you guys on for another show so that we can talk about
Oh, we would love to come back.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll do a part 2.
Oh, I love it. So at the end of every show, we ask a few questions of our guests, and I'll go ahead and I'll start with the first one. What was one lesson that you learned about money or finances, good or bad, growing up that you have carried over into your FIRE journey?
Okay, so I think that my thing, and I sort of touched on it before, was the idea that when I was saying I mirrored the type of money handling that I learned in my family, which was that you save money. And I think the best lesson that I've learned since then is that in order to reach financial independence, it's not just about saving money. It's about taking that money that you save and investing it. And I think that is the best lesson that I've learned, because if I would have continued on a track of just saving money, I don't think that I would reach financial independence. It's about investing your money, because if you invest your money, it grows at a much more rapid pace, and you can reach financial independence much earlier than if you were to just save your money.
And for me, I think the number one thing that I learned is that, okay, we all have these challenges in life, financial challenges and roadblocks. And I have never let these blocks stand in my way. There's always a way to go around, over, and sometimes through these roadblocks. And so I have just always tried to approach any money problem or any money challenge in a creative, unorthodox way. And people use the word hack a lot. Yeah, I mean, people have been doing that for generations. I mean, my mom was probably the best hacker I knew, because she could solve a financial problem, whether it was like making the food last longer, or getting us clothes, or even living rent free. These were things that my parents instilled in me, that okay, we have some financial challenges, but we're going to figure out a way to get over them. And so I've just taken those lessons, and I've shared them with my family, and Christina and I have used that information to pursue financial independence.
I love that perspective, because it's the balancing of, you want to inspire people, but at the same time, you want to be empathetic and compassionate to people who maybe have had disadvantages. But I think it is so important to have that mindset adjustment of, okay, this situation sucks. There's a whole lot that I can't control about this situation, but there are things that I can control. And so how do I figure a way out? How do I, and I'm just going to say hypothetically, how do I, as a single mom, I'm trying to raise these two kids and I'm not making very much money. How am I going to save? Well, okay, so let's think about this. Is there another maybe single mom or single parent that is in the similar situation? Can you two team up, and can you get a house together? Can you, childcare share? There's just so many different ways approaching our life's problems. And it's when you have that shift in your thinking of, we're going to find a way around it, that you get out of it. Absolutely love that.
Magical things can happen when you have a separate mindset, a different mindset. So you touched on house hacking, or let's say creative and unorthodox thinking, when you lived in the Bay Area. Do you have other house hacks or life hacks for people who are living in high cost of living areas?
Oh yeah.
I want to hear some of these.
Oh my goodness. We have so many of them, and we talk a lot about these subjects on our YouTube channel. So it's like, where do we start? But
well, I think for cost of living, we did live in the Bay Area, so it's very expensive, and we've lived throughout California. We lived in LA and the Bay Area also, but we've done things where, for example, we had a place, and this is when we were single, so we didn't have kids. We did things where we had extra bedrooms that we rented out, and so when we rented those out, those paid for the rest of the house. And I think, at this stage, it's not necessarily something we would do because we have kids, but that's one thing we did. We also had a house and we downsized to a smaller house and were able to rent out the other house, and that paid for both of our places. So we got into a mindset where it's like, when we're in high cost of living areas, you don't need to go for bigger is better. You really should be assessing maybe the size of home that you need. You don't have to get this huge home. And when you can downsize, or if you have another place that you can move into and downsize and rent that out and actually have that pay for both of the homes. We used a lot of Airbnb because you can rent it out on smaller short-term periods, time frames. And because there's shorter time frames, people pay more for a shorter time frame than if you rent it out on a month per month basis. So Airbnb was very useful for us because we were able to sort of hack the cost of living in the Bay Area because of it.
If I was going to give a specific hack that I would use right now in the Bay Area, it would be using Airbnb sporadically to supplement my housing costs. And Christina and I have talked about this, where, like, let's say you lived in the Bay Area and every weekend you went somewhere else. So just rent your place out on the weekend. You can make, $200 or $300 a night, depending on your place. So that is $1,000 maybe extra a month in Airbnb income. that you can put towards your housing costs. Or let's say you have a vehicle that you're not using 100% of the, obviously people don't use their cars all the time. If you put your vehicle on Turo,
and Turo is a place where you rent your vehicle out to drive. The transition it's not to rent your vehicle out for people to live in it, but it's a site sort of like a car rental place where you can put your car on that site and people can rent your car and they can use it when you're not driving it, and then you can get money from that.
But living in a high cost of living area like the Bay Area, like New York, like LA, we found that there are always hacks and hustles going on around you. And so what I would do is just keep my ear to the ground, talk to people. We discovered most of our hacks from just being open to new ideas and networking.
Those are all great ideas. So what is the best way for people to find you guys?
Well, we have our YouTube site, our YouTube channel called Our Rich Journey, and we do about 2 videos a week on that channel. We just started, about
3 months ago?
3 months ago. So we have quite a few videos up on that now, and we're continuing to put videos up on that. But I think the best way, like I said, is YouTube, and you can just search us by searching Our Rich Journey.
And I will tell you, listeners, that this YouTube channel is wonderful. They have so many just different perspectives on a lot of things and a lot of practical advice. So I love your channel. I am learning a whole bunch about so many different things. I love the one where you discussed looking at the community's master plan and determining where to live to maybe get ahead of the game and purchasing. I would have never thought of that. Not ever.
Oh, thank you.
It was such good information. So our listeners should definitely go check you guys out. It's a great station.
Excellent.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. We had so much fun, and we are definitely going to have to do a follow-up interview and talk about some of these other housing ideas that you guys have. They're just really cool.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah,
we had so much fun.
All right, you guys, take care.
All right, thanks.
Talk to you later.
Well, House of Five family, that brings this episode to a close. We appreciate you listening. And if you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. To show our appreciation, for every 5 reviews we receive, we will reward that listener with one of our favorite reads. And you can find out what that is in our show notes. Don't forget to also send us an email with your review screen name so that we can track who has left a review. Our hope for this show is that we have both inspired you and provided you with practical tools to aid you in your journey to financial independence. We welcome your feedback, and you can do that in one of 3 ways. You can message us on our website, houseoffi.com, through the contact page. You can also leave a voice message there. The final way is that you can send us an email at info@houseoffi.com. We read every message. Once again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.